Hey everyone, it's Ornlu, and this is going to be my 1000th video for the channel, so I thought I'd mark this special occasion with a very commonly requested topic, my top 5 custom campaigns in AoE2 DE. There are so many well done custom campaigns in the game right now that people have just made for free, which is why I've been reluctant to make this kind of ranking. That said, there are so many of them for people to choose from that many people don't know where to start. So that's the goal of this video, to outline my subjective opinion on the best designed custom campaigns. In making these rankings, I'm looking first and foremost at how unique and compelling the gameplay is, but also the degree of polish and quality of its storytelling. Basically the same things as an official campaign. Of course, be sure to let me know as to what your favorite custom campaigns are in the comments and which you'd recommend for players new to this area of AoE2. Before I dive into the list, I do want to take a quick moment to sell out, so be sure to like this video if you found it helpful, and to be sure to subscribe to the channel for plenty more single player and multiplayer content. Also, if you want to play these campaigns, I'll have the links to all of the ones discussed in this video in the comments. Alright, that's done, so let's not keep you all waiting any longer. We're gonna kick things off with perhaps a bit of a surprising one, Kings of West Africa. This series of historical battles by Philadelphia naturally centers around West Africa, providing 9 very unique and different scenarios. As the Malians are the only civilization in the game that represent West Africa, historical liberties are taken in these missions as you will get to play as all 3 African civilizations, the Malians, Berbers, and Ethiopians. Interestingly, this campaign was originally planned to be part of the African Kingdoms expansion back in HD, but was ultimately cut from the final release of the DLC. As to what makes this particular collection of historical battles so interesting, I can point out 2 major factors. First, as I alluded to, there is so much variety found in these missions, geographically, temporally, and in terms of gameplay. You go from defending the collapse of the Ghana Empire in the 11th century, all the way to the founding of the Songhai Empire at the end of the 15th century. You go from the shores of Lake Chad to the delta of the Niger River, all the way to the Atlantic Ocean in the west. For a lot of AoE2 players who might not be familiar with the history of this part of the world, Kings of West Africa will provide a nice introduction to the diverse tribes, kingdoms, and empires found here throughout the Middle Ages. Gameplay-wise, this custom campaign has everything from small-scale RPG scenarios to big build-and-destroy missions. To give a quick rundown, Tenkanamen 1076 is a small-scale defense and escort mission to get some villagers to safety. Dunama 1240 and Omalo 1260 are both smaller-scale monk-based scenarios, with the former having you use them to raise an army, and the latter taking a more pacifist approach that would make T-West proud. Mansa Musa 1330 naturally has you build an empire with enormous wealth, while Uare 1440 gives you the first 200 pop Imperial Age mission as you must control the relics found on the map to claim the kingship of Benin. Rumfa 1463 has you build an empire from the most humble of origins, and Tengela 1490 leads you on a large-scale military conquest of the Fulani. Finally, Sunni Ali 1475 and Askia 1492 have you relive the origins of the Songhai Empire as they cast down the Mali. Phew, like I said, there is a lot to unpack in this campaign. I'm only going to have very minor complaints with every entry on this list, especially as we get higher up, but for Kings of West Africa, my biggest gripes are really just the lack of voice acting to give the scenarios more flavor, and the fact that some of the missions are quite short. These are only minor details though, so if you're looking to play something different from your traditional series of build and destroy missions where you build up one big single empire, I'd highly recommend you check out Kings of West Africa. Next up today will be our number 4 campaign, Tomislav. Following the story of the first king of Croatia, Tomislav actually features a custom civilization, which is naturally the Croats. More on them in a moment. If you want to play this one, be sure to also download the supplemental mod as well as the main campaign one so that the custom civ works properly. The link to both will be in the description. That aside, this is the first DE campaign by Jacqueline, and as you can imagine with the whole custom civ thing, there is a ton to it. Speaking of the Croats, they are a cavalry-focused civ with some interesting units and bonuses. They have a few unique units, starting with their castle unit, the appropriately named Croat Axeman. This is a bulky infantry that only costs wood, so it's quite easy to spam with all of your food-heavy cavalry units. And it performs well versus the enemy pikemen that would otherwise be difficult to stop without gunpowder or good archers. Additionally, the Croats and Serbs in the campaign have the Zupan replacing the scout line, which is basically a lower HP, higher attack scout that can be made very cheaply. Finally, the Kondura is a unique warship that is a weaker, cheaper, faster galley that only costs wood. The civilization also has a few bonuses, the most interesting of which is that their units gain extra damage when fighting uphill instead of less damage. Overall, the Croats are a fun civ and not as blatantly overpowered as many custom civs out there. Looking now at the structure of the campaign, Tomislav is going to be be much more traditional with 6 chronological scenarios. We open with the Dark Horse, which is a small-scale scenario that establishes Tomislav as the defender of the Croat people from the machinations of East Francia and the ravages of the Magyars. With Croatia established, the second scenario, Bloody Hooves, expands the campaign scale by giving you an all-out fight against the Magyars. There's lots of elevation and twisting waterways to make use of the Croat bonuses and unique units, but you're still restricted to the Castle Age. The third mission, Asylum, is a very challenging small-scale escort mission, whereas the fourth level, Voyage to Apulia, really allows the player to flex the naval might of the Croats and face some new enemies. Our climax comes from the fifth level, the Battle of the Bosnian Highlands, which is a huge all-out war against the Bulgarians. Finally, Croatia Rising takes place after Tomislav's time, where you use everything the Croats have available to establish the kingdom as a major power in the region. As you can see, there is a ton of variety in these scenarios, presenting a coherent progression in scale from humble origins to a huge empire, and the structure of the levels does a lot to show off the Croats as a civ. Tomislav is not about slamming 6 200 pop post-imp infinite unit spam scenarios at you. The level of polish of this campaign is also pretty solid, and there is full voice acting for the slides and in-game dialogue, as well as unique voice lines for the Croat units. Great from start to finish, Tomislav really allows the player to experience a traditional AoE2 campaign with a unique custom civilization. Moving now to our top 3, we have The Rise of Tamerlane, Parts 1 and 2. I know I'm kind of cheating here, putting 2 campaigns together, but it's by the same author and is the same continuous story. Speaking of which, this campaign was designed by Bassi, who is one of the official campaign developers, and covers the story of Tamerlane's ascent to power before the events of the official campaign. As one might expect, you play as the Tatars in this custom campaign, and there are 7 total scenarios between the 2 parts, with 4 in the first half and 3 in the second half. It may not be as out there as some of the other campaigns, but as you can expect from an official dev, the level of polish and gameplay design is just as good as any of the official scenarios. So with that in mind, let's break down the scenarios of the Rise of Tamerlane custom campaign. The first mission, Great Expectations, starts Timur off as a young man serving another emir by putting down some rebellious Khans. After choosing to serve one of them, he goes on to become the governor of Transoxiana in the second level, Great Ambitions. Next, Timur goes on to take the city of Samarkand, encircling vultures, defeating more rivals in the process. Lastly, in the first part of the campaign, Timur must battle his old friend over the sprawling city of Balkh. Part 2 of Rise of Tamerlane picks up pretty much where the first part ended, with Timur having to quell those who would challenge his rule. Snakes in the Grass, the first mission, also features a cool RPG-style section where you have to infiltrate a city that you later destroy. The second scenario, Holy War, establishes your religious legitimacy as you fight over the smoldering ruins of Transoxiana. Last but not least, the Horde Rides North has you take down the wonders of 3 large, well-fortified enemy cities, leaving you basically at the beginning of Tamerlane 1 in the official campaign. So in all of that, what makes the gameplay stand out in The Rise of Tamerlane? Yes, it is mostly build and destroy type scenarios, but they're done in a way that feels fun, challenging, and very importantly, not repetitive. Missions have well-executed cutscenes, there's always some sort of side quest or side objective to complete, and the missions vary in terms of max population and age you can obtain. The last one is, in my opinion, actually quite important for giving different scenarios different feels, whether it be a small skirmish, sieging an enemy fortress, or a huge pitched battle. Story-wise, following such a notable historical figure with an official campaign makes the narrative easy to follow, and the infighting between the various emirs and khans is certainly engaging. At the end of the day, this campaign does not do anything terribly fancy when it comes to unique mechanics or custom civilizations, but across all of the custom campaigns I've played in DE, Rise of Tamerlane provides the best balance between story and gameplay in the context of a more traditional AoE2 campaign. Coming in at number 2 will be Ragnar Saga. This Philadelphia campaign may be my favorite individual scenario in all of AoE2 DE. Yes, like most of the Philadelphia custom campaigns, Ragnar Saga is only one mission, but there is enough content packed into it that it will probably last you at least 4 in-game hours. So yeah, I think it's fair to compare to the other more traditional campaigns. Content-wise, Ragnar Saga is a Viking adventure following the exploits of the famous Viking chieftain Ragnar Lothbrok as he raids his way across Scandinavia, Britain, and continental Europe ranging from Russia to France. All of this is packed into a gigantic map, but far from being overwhelming, the scenario does a good job of breaking down your objectives into much more manageable categories. Put simply, this is an RPG-ish style level where you have to complete 30 of 50 quest objectives, which are broken down into sagas, like Ragnar conquering Scandinavia, his sons raiding Britain, etc. Ragnar starts with very few resources, and he must raid enemy buildings for golden villagers while training more soldiers at the local mead halls, aka wonders. Your maximum population starts at only 20, but it can be increased by claiming more and more of the Norse lands. As you go through this scenario, the Vikings will grow more powerful. You can research special technologies with stone, your raiding force eventually grows into a powerful army that can level entire cities, and you can colonize new lands in which the Vikings can settle. There is just so much to do here that you'll be hard-pressed to find every last objective, Easter egg, or Gaia unit to recruit to your side. There's even a day-night mechanic where your infantry gain extra damage during the night. In terms of polish, Ragnar Saga has everything you could want with full voice acting, sound effects, and a lack of bugs or unintended quirks, which is impressive for a level with so many triggers. The difficulty of the scenario is decent as well. You have to pick your fights in the early game before you have an economy, and constant raids and rebellions at home can make balancing conquest and defense quite tricky. I know many players like the big boomy build and destroy campaigns, and I do too, but there is just so much to do in Ragnar Saga that I'd definitely recommend it to anyone. Just be sure to give yourself plenty of time to play it. Before we jump into our number 1 pick, I want to quickly go through a couple of honorable mentions, first of which is going to be The Last Romans. This is another Philadelphia single scenario campaign being focused on the siege of Constantinople in 1453 by Mehmet the Conqueror. However, you play this scenario from the perspective of Constantine XI and the Byzantines. The basic premise of this mission is to hold out for 2 in-game hours while you defend wave after wave of Ottoman attacks. These attack waves come every 10 minutes, where you have to defend like crazy and then are given time to build back up. This gameplay mechanic was actually used by Philadelphia in his official Sicilians campaign with Bohemond in the east. What makes this scenario so memorable is its giant scale and difficulty. Holding out for 2 hours is no easy task and can even take an experienced player multiple tries, even with the 500 population limit. There are plenty of side objectives you can do to give you a boost, but no matter what, you'll still need to contend with the massive Ottoman army. Our second honorable mention is going to be The Golden Horde, parts 1 and 2. Another 2-for-1, this campaign combo is also designed by Bassi, and is in many ways similar to The Rise of Tamerlane, only this time you follow Batu Khan and his successors. More of a collection of battles than our number 3 campaign, The Golden Horde has you playing as the Mongols, Tatars, and Cumans across 6 different scenarios between the 2 parts. Speaking of which, the first part of the campaign focuses on the Golden Horde's invasion of Russia, pitting you against the Bulgars, Kipchaks, as well as other Mongols. The second part focuses mostly on the infighting within the Golden Horde, featuring the capital of Sarai in a couple of scenarios, as well as a struggle for Crimea. Basically, all of the pros I outline in The Rise of Tamerlane apply to this campaign as well, and the choice as to which to put on the list comes down to minor differences. Personally, I find the story of Tamerlane to be a bit more compelling and easy to follow, but if you enjoyed one of the campaigns, you'll definitely have a great time in the other. And here we are, my favorite custom campaign in all of AoE2 DE, Opranic. I'm sure this won't be too surprising to many of you, but this Persians campaign from Jacqueline is just so fun and well designed, it really rivals the official entries from Forgotten Empires. Historically, Opranic was a young noblewoman from late Sassanid Persia who became a military commander just as the Islamic Rashidun Caliphate invaded. This campaign is going to follow a much more traditional format, providing 5 chronological scenarios, much like Tomislav. These missions are all pretty different from one another, however, so let's just dive right into them. Starting things off, Up the Ranks provides an introduction to a teenage Opranic who must learn how to become a military commander, basically a 7th century training montage. The interesting mechanic here is that Opranic herself must level up through the ranks of the Persian army by fighting the Arabs, Byzantines, and Armenians, getting more powerful individually as well as access to more units. Things fall apart quite quickly, however, as the second scenario, A Distraught Path, has Opranic see the total collapse of the Sassanid Empire to the Caliphate. She must undergo a grueling A to B type mission featuring a hunger mechanic and multiple routes through the mountains to escape to the Indus River Valley. Swift Strategies has the Persians fighting back against the Arabs and Libyans, although you do not get much of an economy and must rely on hit-and-run raids to weaken the enemy. Next, 7th century Exodus has Opranic forced to flee to Aksum in Africa, where she must find a way to work with the Ethiopians, Nubians, and Egyptians to take the fight to Alexandria and even Arabia. There are some cool side quests here, as well as a big discount to elephants, which makes it pretty darn fun. Last but not least, No Retreat, No Surrender brings Opranic back home, where you have to quickly siege and take the Sassanid capital of Ctesiphon. Afterwards, you need to build and defend a wonder from a gigantic onslaught from the Saracens and Libyans. Hopefully, in going through the scenarios, you can see just how fun and unique they all are, binding together a memorable and tragic story as ultimately Opranic was not able to save the Sassanid Empire and ended up dying in battle. On top of being fun, the challenge level is quite high, which I'm a big fan of. Everything is voice acted, and the gameplay and script are all quite well polished, noticeably more than Tomislav. It's just a great campaign all around, and I really recommend it to anyone who enjoys AoE2 campaigns. Of course, at the end of the day, these are all just my opinions, and there are so many great custom campaigns in this game that I'm just not able to cover them all in one video. All you guys need to do is just browse the campaigns in the mod center, and you'll have dozens of hours of great content. As always, be sure to let me know what your favorite custom campaign campaigns are in the comments, as so many of them really do deserve a shout out. Lastly, I would like to say an extra special thanks to my Patreon supporters who help make these videos possible, with Anonymous and Tristan in the Great Wolf tier, as well as Carolyn, Dieter, Elvenor, Liquid Egg Product, Rairu, Tanduri, and Folder in the Dire Wolf tier. This has been 1,000 videos now for the channel, and I really am grateful for all of the support you guys give me, even by just tuning in. So all I can say is thank you all for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.